Hi, and welcome to our first ever webinar series. This month, covering tips and resources on how to be a successful songwriter and business person in the music industry. We're going to start off by introducing ourselves and going over what we hope you'll take away from this webinar today. Hi, my name is Elizabeth McBride. I recently moved over to publishing specialist from the Songtrust operations side. My degree is in music industry studies at Loyola University, New Orleans. And my curiosity of publishing started in school, where we studied artist empowerment from an entrepreneurial perspective.
And my name is Adam Schwartz. I'm a lifelong music lover from Chicago, Illinois. I'm passionate about strengthening the relationship Songtrust has with our clients and helping them learn all about music publishing and the industry at large. Over the next hour, we'll be discussing in depth various resources we've collected to help new writers and writers looking to refine their process keep on track for a successful career. We'll be covering the basics of the creative process, best practices on building out your foundation, tips for getting the word out about your songs, and general information on avoiding burnout, as well as how to be an advocate involved in your music community.
Just a few housekeeping items. Do not forget you can ask questions in the chat box to the right of your screen. We encourage you to interact with us and participate in our webinar today. And if we can't answer your questions in real time, we will be having a Q&A at the very end to try to answer everyone. Our social media team is also on standby as they are participating on our Twitter. You can follow us at Songtrust and also utilize hashtag #SongwriterSuccess.
All right, let the webinar begin. Let's jump right in, starting with the creative process. What we mean by the creative process is really this. Once you finish your songs, your original ideas become copyright. As soon as they reach a tangible format, such as writing out lyrics with pen and paper, or recording audio with tape, or maybe some computer DAW software. Really, the law is as easy as that. Once you get your song content written down or recorded, your song becomes copyrighted. No need to get a lawyer involved or add a copyright symbol. Your songs are your intellectual property, and your intellectual property is copyrighted. Now, how do you keep your copyright safe as you begin working with collaborators, publishers, and potentially producing recordings of your finished songs?
Great question, Adam. As he stated, your musical composition is yours to own, and that copyright lasts your entire lifetime. So how are you going to plan for the best lifetime of your music? Are you going to work with artists? Are you going to record your music? Are you going to perform your music? If you're the artist, that's pretty simple. If you're finding artists to work with, where can you find them? Should you go to venues? Should you make demos of your music to present it to artists to work with? If it's a collection of works, say for example, an album, you should treat one song just like any other and the album like one song. Also, if you're working with co-writers, which many songwriters co-write music, and there are many ways to document co-writing music and how much you actually own in comparison to your collaborators.
All right, let's get into split sheets. These are really important for the songwriting process. A split sheet is a written document and essentially a contractual conversation between all the writers collaborating on a song. We strongly suggest making it common practice to have this split sheet printed out and ready to fill out anytime you're in a songwriting session or collaborating with other artists in a studio and recording music. Split sheets are great because they neatly outline the portion of writer ownership for each song using percentages to determine who will receive what share of future royalties. Artists and songwriters contributing lyrics often get more ownership than those contributing instrumentals. And if you're in a band, a lot of times all members will agree to equally share the split among themselves. But really, Elizabeth, there's no rules to this. You make it up however you want. It's truly up to you and your collaborators to determine a fair way to distribute the ownership of each song in your composition. It's better to establish these splits in the moment while you're in the room and working together than have to track people down at a later time and discuss these matters. How many songwriters can you add to a split? Well, it's really as many as there are that are contributing to the composition. Sometimes you're the only writer on the song, and in that case, you will get 100% of your composition ownership. Other times, you can have 2, 3, 10 songwriters, and it's up to you to determine how many percentages each song gets for the split.
Plenty of writers start out in music, but usually it's with other people's music. They're performing and making arrangements of covers. How does this work if you're still trying to represent your music via covers and your original music? Well, it takes a few extra steps, but it's not as complicated. If you were to cover someone's songs, a publisher would not be able to register them for you. This is simply because you're not the original composer, and therefore you need to ask permission to use the original work. Asking permission to use an original work requires a mechanical license. It seems a little bit daunting. Basically, what you need to do is figure out who originally wrote that song and possibly who their publisher or label is. You can find this information by going into a performing rights organization repertoire and researching that writer's contact information. We'll go over PROs in just a bit.
And another common practice in songwriting is something called sampling. A sample is essentially taking a snippet of audio, whether it be vocal lyrics or instrumentation, from someone else's song and repurposing it into your own composition. This practice is common in genres such as hip hop and electronic music. If you register a song on our platform that contains a sample that hasn't been properly cleared, you're liable for any repercussions. You're responsible for getting clearances from the original owner of that audio that you're sampling and getting their permission to repurpose it into your own song. There are certain services like TrackLib that can help you navigate these sampling laws, and we strongly suggest that although we can't provide legal advice, you should seek that out and get a licensing agreement so that your samples can be cleared for when you end up publishing this content. For samples, you need 2 different licenses. One is for the master recording that you're using, and the other is for the composition from the original publisher-songwriter.
Plenty of songwriters begin with lyrics or music. How do you know the story behind your lyrics, where they come from, and who owns them? A lot of the contents of your songs can be represented in something called a lyric sheet. Being organized is a great way to document how you write your songs. And if you had a true inspiration or a true collaborator that helped you write your lyrics, you might want to remember that. A lyric sheet can help you organize the time, the method, the equipment, the context, or backstory of a song you're writing. You could provide a lyric sheet to a music supervisor, a label, a co-writer, or anywhere that you're publishing your lyrics.
You know, a personal motto of mine is that organization is really half the battle. So it might seem to a lot of you like a lot of busy work. And I mean, who wants to be worrying about all these tedious things like split sheets and lyric sheets when you're just trying to focus on your art and getting your vision out? Here's the thing though, as you move into the next stage of building out your foundation and getting these songs out into the world, you can run out of time or run into situations where you need to have these things ready to go. That's why we strongly encourage that you fill out these split sheets in your sessions and your lyric sheets so that everything is documented as you're creating. You know what they say, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today.
We were just asked how we can stay organized, and that's great timing for that question, because as we wrap up talking about the creative process, it is hard to wrap your head around how many steps it takes to not only write a song, formulate a song, and work with all of these different parties on a song, but how do you actually organize all this information, especially in a way where you can reference it, past information and in the present? You know, that's a very personalized question. There are plenty of tools such as those in your Google Drive that you can utilize. And there are plenty of systems such as spreadsheets, and plenty of ways you can utilize and personalize what we are providing you already. At the end of the webinar, as we'll note later, we're going to provide you with a lyric sheet and a split sheet. So you will have these forms to use on your own. But keeping every other detail that you'd like to know about your music in a central place is crucial. Myself, as a songwriter, I like to use collaborative documents with other songwriters. So say, for example, if we're co-writing a song, we can use a Google Doc and we can edit it in real time. We can even make comments on the lyrics that we're writing together, which is really helpful. Then if you want to print it out and organize it and maybe put it up on a vision board, and associating it with whatever inspires you in your program at that time and any other artists that inspire you, it's a great way to work.
Yeah, and I found that in my own work, I like to use a software program called Evernote, which is really a great piece of software. You can create different notebooks, you can use tags, and it's really quite a great built out software note-taking device that you can collaborate with others as well, just like the Google products. And Evernote is really great. You can really build out your ideas and kind of follow through on your creative process all in one place. So you started your song and you've collected all the important information. Now the more businessy part of the work comes into play. And this really encompasses three major elements, which we'll be speaking about now, and that is distribution, publishing, and mentorship.
First is distribution. How do you get your music out to the world, and how do you get it to be listened to, whether you're with your friends or you're trying to reach a new audience? How do people get their music on Spotify or Apple Music? Well, there are a few ways, and you can even get your music in stores to be sold. But it's, of course, a lot to research, and a lot of it depends on the value of your music and the budget you have and the interest that you have and the marketplace that you're trying to reach. Distribution refers to your master recordings of your songs getting out into the world and in front of the public to be streamed, played, downloaded, and purchased. There are plenty of services that offer to put your music on these streaming platforms and in stores. These services include CD Baby or DistroKid. But if you're going for more of a DIY approach, say analog, or if you're just trying to distribute physical CDs, vinyl, or cassettes, you can do your research about places that help you manufacture those copies, and then you can make more informed decisions.
You don't want to be out of cash when you want to book a tour or not distributing your music widely enough to build a following and bring in an audience to your live shows. If you're not a performing artist, and many songwriters are not performing artists, deciding how your songs will be shared with the public is just as important. Are you going purely digital, or do you want to distribute physical copies such as CDs, tapes, or vinyl? Also, we strongly encourage using social media to your advantage. Platforms such as Facebook and Twitter are great tools to market yourself and your songs to music fans all over the world. And the best part is, these tools are free and can help you market all of your songs to people and easily connect with your fans. Also, we recommend pitching your talents and your music to labels or looking for creative services that will sync your music with films, television shows, or advertisements. So you've done your homework to make sure that you're totally prepped and you've decided how you distribute your music. Most people might stop there and think they're done, but in reality, you're only halfway there. You want to make money off of your music, right? This is where publishing comes in, and it deserves your undivided attention.
Publishing has had a long and confusing history, but we've come a long way, both from our legislation and the Tin Pan alley days. What is the role of a music publisher? That's a great question, and it's important to know that role, especially if you're a songwriter. How can a publisher help you? Publisher's role is to register your music with a performing rights organization. Once your music is earning royalties, a publisher will collect the royalties owed to you.
We've included a few posts to get you started, including taking a look at traditional publishing versus publishing administration, which is what Songtrust does. Keep in mind, your needs might change as you grow, but picking a good publisher who supports you and has your best interests at heart can make all the difference during your journey as an artist in this music industry.
One way to differentiate publishers is to understand their terms. Do they have an upfront fee? What is the length of the term? And how much do they retain from your royalties? In other words, some publishers do take a commission. The internet is filled with a lot of information so that you can easily learn the basics of publishing in about an afternoon. So definitely do your research and learn more about what a publisher does and which publisher is right for you. It's important to know that there's not a one-size-fits-all publisher. Songtrust does offer these resources, but we're also going to provide you more with understanding publishing and what publishing means to you.
All right, we've got a great question that just came through. And it is, when a company is publishing your EP, does that entitle them to full rights of your music and brand for an entire year?
That is a fabulous question. And it's something that you would learn from asking that specific publisher. Every publisher is going to be different. Traditionally, a traditional publisher will take ownership of your music, and that's written out in the contract that they provide you to sign. Publishing administration, however, is a bit different. And what differentiates administration, most importantly, is that they often take no ownership of your work. It's usually a non-exclusive agreement where you purely give them permission to license your music to be registered at a performing rights organization so that it's represented and then it's organized and registered properly. However, you still have all ownership of your music, and if you were to get it synced or work with a creative outlet, you would have full permission to do that, and you would get all income that comes from that placement. And here's a bit of an outline that just contrasts Songtrust with the traditional publishing deal. The term is different. The royalties are a bit different. We try to be as transparent as possible. As you can see, there are a lot of ways that we break down what a publisher does and how we differentiate from other publishers.
What Songtrust really prides ourselves on is being favorable to the artists. We're really here to democratize publishing and allow anybody that wants to learn about publishing and get a music publisher for their works with a very low barrier to entry. As you can see, we have favorable terms of service, and we have a lot of things to offer in terms of publishing administration. You get to keep 100% of your copyrights, you control your own sync rights, and signing up is only $100.
So there are a few kinds of royalties that are collected from the composition side alone. If we haven't illustrated before, it's that your composition and your recording are two separate pieces of copyright, and in that way they earn different types of royalties. The two types of royalties that your composition earns are performance and mechanical. Performance is normally paid by a PRO, a performing rights organization, and it's when your song is publicly performed. You can think of this from the very derivation, which is someone performing it literally on a stage or with a guitar in a room. Mechanical royalties come from societies, mechanical collection societies, such as Harry Fox Agency. And these are derived from music being generated into new formats, such as CD, vinyl, digital. That's where it gets a little bit fuzzy, but you can understand the difference between the two here and where they come from. There was an excellent question that was asked to us just now, and it's, what's the most independent way to collect all of the publishing? Start a business and then let Harry Fox collect it? That is, you're getting there. That's a great question, and that's part of the way to get there. In the US, for example, as a publisher, you would affiliate your company and your writers with a PRO. Second, you would affiliate with HFA as a publisher as well. Songwriters can't go directly to HFA, so songwriters can't directly collect mechanical royalties. In the US, only publishers can collect mechanical royalties, and that's another reason why a publisher is so helpful. Internationally, however, it gets very expensive and time-consuming to try to do this on your own, and that's why it becomes useful to utilize a global rights administrator like Songtrust.
So we have another question here. Can I be registered with more than one publishing admin? And my recommendation would be to not register with more than one publishing admin. This would be redundant, repetitive, and it's
actually impossible. You cannot have two people claiming your administration at one time. Say, for example, you signed up with Songtrust, and then you tried to register the same song with another publishing administration service. What would happen is that your song would actually go into conflict. This is one reason why the PROs are so important. It's not only that they pay our money, but they also represent our songwriters. They would identify that there's a conflict of ownership with your song, and then they would contact Songtrust and the other publisher that you're attempting to work with, and they would help come to a resolution. It's getting a little complicated, but we work to resolve those resolutions all the time, and all this information is as transparent as possible. And that's why it's careful to make the right decision, because you are entering an agreement that you can only work with one administrator. Oh, great question. Is Songtrust affiliated with HFA so that when we use your service, we can collect these royalties? Absolutely. Songtrust works with a global network of collection societies. We work with over 40 PROs and mechanical collection societies, and that we register your works directly with them and collect your royalties directly from them. With this network, you can utilize global collection and registration, and it really saves you a lot of time and energy. Also, it provides you with more information than you otherwise would have if you weren't able to do this with any other publisher.
all right. Let's move on to talking about mentors, which is a huge part of how you can educate yourself on the music industry, as well as improve your skills as a songwriter and a music craftsman. Find a mentor who can guide you and tell you about their past experiences with distribution companies, publishers, and PROs in general. Don't set yourself up to make the same mistakes as everyone else. Do the research now and use your network to prepare you. Don't forget, you're never alone in your musical journey.
It can definitely all seem a bit daunting, but Songtrust is going to help provide you with a packet after this webinar that explains everything we've talked about so far and what forms and information you need to properly register your songs, and then what Songtrust can help you do after those songs are registered as well.
All right, by this point, if you set yourself up properly, you should be feeling pretty good. You've done a huge part of the work. Finish your song, figured out how to get the public to interact with your music, and set yourself up to collect all your earned royalties as they start coming in. Now, it's really about capitalizing on your craft and all the hard work you've done to this point. It's time to start getting the word out about your songs.
All right, Adam, we just got a great question. And it is, if I am signed to CD Baby, are they my administrator? We are very familiar with CD Baby and we support everything they do. They have a branch of their service called CD Baby Pro. CD Baby and CD Baby Pro are a bit different, as CD Baby Pro adds publishing to what otherwise is digital distribution. CD Baby is a digital distribution platform that gets your music in stores like iTunes and Spotify to be streamed and purchased and sold. But they also do administration. So if you're signed up with CD Baby Pro, then they most likely are your publishing administrator. Second question, can I self-publish and go with someone like Songtrust? Of course. Adam, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, that's a great question also. So if you would like to self-publish, you can get affiliated with a performing rights organization as both a songwriter or as a publisher. In this case, you would get affiliated with a PRO as a publisher. And you can also go through Songtrust, who will then be acting on your behalf as your music publishing admin. So that way you have your own company as a music publisher, but then you can have an admin like Songtrust acting on your behalf to get your works registered globally.
Quick question, Adam. Do I need my own publishing company for my music to be published properly?
You know, it really is unnecessary, but if that's a step that you want to take, go for it. However, it's really not necessary, as getting publishing admin help from a company like Songtrust is really all you need as a songwriter.
Gotcha.
One last question that just came in before we move on here. Is BMI and ASCAP publishers?
Interesting question. BMI and ASCAP are PROs. They're performing rights organizations. And these are the organizations that are government mandated, and they help intermediate publishers and other parties in the music industry. So PROs, for example, ASCAP and BMI in the US, they work with platforms, they work with TV networks, they work with Spotify, and they help determine what is right for you and that you're receiving the money that you're supposed to. Publishers register your works at these locations and we work with ASCAP and BMI and a network of societies, over 40 of these societies around the world, to make sure that we're up to date with how each single one works, and we are helping represent you as a writer.
All right, let's move on to getting the word out. Once you've worked so hard to make your songs, it's really important to start sharing them with the world.
We live in a digital age. Sharing your songs is very easy these days. So you have plenty of ways to get your word out there. You can set up social profiles as yourself as a musician or as a writer to help tell your story. And you can also share links from Spotify or SoundCloud on these platforms.
Use your friends and family as a resource for feedback, as they're the ones closest to you and their opinions really matter the most. Share with other musicians in your community, as they're your peer group and their opinions also matter. Having another set of ears is great, because if they hear something you missed or if they have suggestions for your next song, this will be super helpful to run it by others, as you need an audience to test for your larger audience.
What about when I'm ready to perform? Well, if you're ready to perform a gig, you may have a set list. And gigs and set lists are two ways to actually earn performing royalties. You can also monetize and market your works on these platforms, as they do, as we talked about earlier, you do earn royalties from putting your music on these platforms.
All right, well, not everyone enjoys getting up on stage in front of people. I know I certainly have stage fright sometimes, but if you consider yourself a performing artist or musician, we suggest looking to book a gig. Whether it's at your local coffee shop with an open mic night or opening for a band at a local venue, playing live shows can be vital to growing your fan base throughout your career.
Even if you're performing your song or not performing your song, you can work with artists who will make sure that they give you their set lists. You can check out our blog about more information that we've talked about so far, such as defining your gig and submitting your set list. As we did mention earlier, there are ways to monetize your set lists and make royalties for your live performances. Not all of these ways of making royalties are very well known to artists, but we can tell you as the money is on the table. There are ways to submit set lists in the US for writers, which are direct with the PRO. So in the US, publishers are not able to submit your set list notifications for royalties. However, at Songtrust, we are experts at international set list submission, and we can help you earn those royalties abroad. Keeping a record of this information is your best practice. Maybe not all of your set lists are the same. So definitely keep these in a safe place that we talked about earlier so that you can refer back to them.
All right, now the part that I know you guys are probably most excited about, and that's monetizing your songs. Elizabeth, as we mentioned earlier, there's so many ways to earn royalties off your songs, like mechanical royalties and performance royalties. And really, you can get them from places like YouTube. If YouTube videos are using your song content, royalties can also come in through digital downloads as well as streaming services.
That's very true. Also, if your music is selected to be synced in media, you can earn royalties as a film or TV or advertisement is performed perpetually.
Other ways might include getting your song added to a karaoke catalog, making a clip of your song to use as a ringtone, or even having your songs used in interactive greeting cards. That's really how you know you've made it big time. Using Songtrust blog as a reference, you can do some extra homework and read up on earning revenue and the different revenue streams that might come from your songs. All right, so the last part we want to talk about is taking care of yourself as a songwriter. Burnout is a real thing, guys. You have to make sure that your mind, your body, and your soul are all aligned so you're ready to write the best possible music that you can. Make sure you're getting plenty of rest and taking time to reflect on your work, stepping away when it's time for a break. Find new and interesting ways to move through your writer's block. I don't know about you, Elizabeth, but I find that going on a nice walk outside or having like a 10-minute meditating session really gets me where I need to be and have a great mental mind space to start writing songs.
Definitely. I was reading an article today about how studies show that it's not best to exhaust yourself over a long period of time. It'd be better to write in increments so that you can study your progress. So writing in smaller amounts of time, you may be able to contribute more to your work than you otherwise would have if you just tried to go as long as you could for 2 hours. Part of our work here at Songtrust is being leaders and advocates in the music community. That means we strongly believe in supporting and advocating for our clients and songwriters any way we can. We really nerd out about this stuff, about being publishing specialists and about learning how publishing works from all vantage points around the world. Whether it's supporting new legislation like the Music Modernization Act, or sharing interesting companies to help your process become more simplified. We encourage all songwriters to be their own advocates and to be parts of their community, to stay up to date on music industry news and support your fellow songwriters.
Absolutely. The music industry is constantly changing, so we suggest staying up to date and reading up about the current new trends so that you can reach your fans and stay up to date and informed on how you can succeed in the music industry. All right, well, we hope you've enjoyed our webinar and could build a foundation to set yourself up for success as a songwriter. I'm really glad you all tuned in today because you're taking the right steps to educate yourself on the importance of publishing and maintaining ownership over your compositions. For those of you that don't know too much about Songtrust, we're the world's largest global royalty collection service and publishing administrator, enabling nearly 150,000 songwriters and over 15,000 publishers to collect their publishing royalties worldwide for over 1 million, yes, I said it, 1 million copyrights.
Yes, Songtrust, largest global royalty collection service and publishing administrator. Pretty wild, right? How do we do that? Well, we have a dedicated staff that has served much of its time to learning about how publishing works and meeting with global leaders and people who are pushing this industry forward. We also have an incredible team of developers who have built custom technology for us to personalize your experience, to collect your data, import it, and register it appropriately around the world. It's really quite phenomenal. And you only need to do this process one time per song. So we take one song and we form it into a global registration at over 40 organizations. That's as many revenue streams as you can access around the globe, and it's really incredible.
Absolutely. And I want to reiterate that whether you're a songwriter, a publisher, work at a music label with publishing arms, manage an artist, you're a music lawyer, you're a distributor, or anyone else, you're able to use Songtrust for your publishing rights admin. You know, we've got a great crowd here today, and I'm super excited because we've already received some awesome questions, and now we're going to open it up to a Q&A to end off this awesome webinar. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's get into some of these questions that have been asked.
And please look forward to our packet of success and details that will be emailed to you shortly.
All right. So we got a question here. What does Songtrust do better than other modern publishing companies? Well, we have a large network of direct relationships with global performing rights organizations that really no other publishing admin has. And this allows us a very wide reach to track all of the usages, such as streams and downloads, in countries all over the world. And we can then gather and maximize your royalty earnings on your behalf.
Also, I'd like to add that our agreement and our terms are extremely flexible, and our terms only a year long. And during our time, we allow the most transparency that you could probably find, whether it's, up-to-date statuses on your global registrations or very detailed royalty statements. We really try to help inform you as much as we do work on your behalf.
All right, great. Let's keep these questions coming.
Another question here. What exactly does Songtrust do? And
not do.
Regarding all collections of royalties, sync licensing, and collections. So, in regards to royalties, sync licensing, and collections, Songtrust will pay you 100% of your publishing royalties. Your royalties are split into those owed to the writer and those owed to the publisher. Without Songtrust, you wouldn't be able to access your publishing royalties. So the difference is that Songtrust helps orchestrate your publishing royalties around the world, which include performance and mechanical, directly from societies. As far as sync licensing, you're free to procure your own syncs because Songtrust is even more flexible than a non-exclusive agreement, meaning we don't take any ownership of your works. So you have complete freedom to put those works wherever you'd like and enter any agreement as far as them being synced in any kind of media.
All right. We have some awesome questions, and I want to make sure that we get to all of them because these are all great questions. So here's another one. If someone has opted in to the Facebook license through HFA, does Songtrust collect that money and pass it on, or does it go directly to the songwriter, not through Songtrust?
This is a fabulous question. As I said earlier, only publishers can enter agreements with HFA, which is complicated, right? Because if you're a songwriter and you think you've followed your steps, you've affiliated yourself with a PRO, and your music's on Facebook, you still couldn't be able to access it unless you opened your own publishing company and went to HFA. And that's complicated. So Songtrust has been along for the ride. And as Facebook is coming up with its own content ID tools, right now they've really gone through the steps of a settlement. And what that means is they're paying flat amounts for the next coming time to cover any uses that were prior to that date of that settlement. So what I mean is the amount of your music being used on Facebook was sort of summarized, and it's being broken down and into this settlement. Some publishers have different ways of paying out, if they even do pay out royalties from Facebook uses. So Songtrust decided all of our writers are owed and should be recognized for their uses on Facebook, and we definitely think that you earn those royalties. But it is very complicated, and it's a flat amount. It's not a royalty. Great question.
All right, now I have a fun two-part question here. Watch out. What do you mean by an admin fee? What does that cover, and is it $100 per song to work with Songtrust? So the admin fee really includes our service, and it includes getting affiliated with a performing rights organization if you have not already been affiliated. It also includes all of the admin work that we do on your behalf. So it is not $100 per song to work with Songtrust. It is a flat $100 registration fee, and then you are able to register as many songs as your heart desires, the more the merrier on our platform.
We do take a commission. That's 15% of all royalties collected. That's any publisher is going to take a fee, is going to take a commission on your royalties, and that's something you can research about to see what other publishers are charging. Another question is, what determines if I will receive my royalties for music I've composed that is featured on a television network? If you've signed a sync license to get your music on a TV show or a movie or an advertisement, you're normally paid up front. In addition, you should check your license to see if you're owed perpetual performance royalties. So, say for example, you got your music in Orange is the New Black show. You would get your sync sum up front, however many dollars that you negotiated for that single use. Ideally, you should check your sync license to see that you are paid perpetual performance royalties. So when that episode of the TV show comes on the TV show and on the TV, you're paid royalties upon that broadcast and or during the stream of it being used on something like Netflix. And those royalties are calculated by the PROs. And there's a specific calculator that they have to determine those royalties, but it does get pretty deep.
All right, here's another one. Does Songtrust assign ISWC numbers to the composition? So there's two sets of numbers that often come with music publishing, and that's an ISRC and an ISWC. ISRCs will be assigned to your individual songs through your music distributor, like we spoke about earlier. These distributors will give you an ISRC, and then...
What does ISRC stand for?
That's a great question, Elizabeth. International
Standard Recording Code.
Amazing. So an ISWC will be assigned to your compositions after we've registered them with a performing rights organization.
Not every PRO assigns ISWCs, but they are specific and they do connect directly with your IPI number. Something interesting that is very important that we haven't talked about yet, which I just want to mention here, is that every songwriter, when they're affiliated with the society, is assigned an IPI number. It's a 9-digit code, and it's practically the equivalent of a social security number for the music industry. So any song that has an ISWC will be connected to your IPI number. And I'm saying all these data points, and it really shows that data is important, and it's helpful to have a publisher to organize these points for you.
All right, here's a good one. Will Songtrust be applicable to artists and publishers in South Africa? Well, I want to say hello to our friends from South Africa who've been tuning in. That's awesome. And the answer to that would be yes, absolutely. If you sign up for Songtrust, no matter where in the world you are, we will help with your music publishing rights administration. Absolutely.
And if you feel that you'd like to be affiliated with the society, no matter where you are in the world, Songtrust can affiliate you as a writer. SOCAN is a society in Canada, and they accept writers from all over the globe.
All right, great. So here's another one. Songtrust handles our filing songs with PROs as well, or will we still need to do that on our own? And this is such a great question because it's such a common question that I get asked on a day-to-day basis. If you are a Songtrust member and we have gotten you affiliated with a PRO, or maybe you've been previously affiliated with a PRO, when you opt in to have Songtrust as your music publishing admin, you would register your songs with Songtrust and only Songtrust. And then we would go and get those songs properly registered with the performing rights organizations on your behalf. So there's no need for you to do it for yourself. That's what you've signed up with us for.
All right, I think we have time for a few more questions.
All right, keep them coming.
The next one is there an option to choose which territories Songtrust can represent the publishing rights? Songtrust works as a global network, and therefore we try to give each writer the same attention and the same service. We do not specify by territory, as you know, we work with a global network at a standardized system, an automated system, and therefore we treat a catalog like one song. And when we register a catalog, we will register every song with our entire network.
All right, time for a few more here. Do you get retroactive royalty payment as a songwriter? Well, that's a great question as well. And the answer is yes. A company like Songtrust as your music publishing admin will definitely work with you if you feel that you have a few years of back-ordered retroactive royalties on your behalf for streaming or downloads. So maybe let's say your music has been out in the world for a while, but you haven't yet signed up with a publisher, and you finally come around and decide that that's a good idea. Signing up with Songtrust, we will work on your behalf to go through the previous years of your song usages and track down retroactive royalties as best we can on a global scale.
A really important question is, which comes first, the PRO or the publisher? The publisher's job throughout history has been to affiliate writers and their works with a society such as BMI or ASCAP or PRS in the UK. So we really take that work off of your hands. We do take the responsibility of registering your work, but we help represent you, and we help take all the administrative tasks and registrations, and we help keep you all of that information organized for you.
All right. Another one here. Once registered with Songtrust, how does one's PRO become aware of my performances? Do I have to notify them? And I think as we touched on before, we do all of the work for you in terms of getting your songs and all of the data associated with it registered on the performing rights organization's repertoire. So if you give all of your song data to us, we act on your behalf and get them registered with PROs all over the world so that we're maximizing the revenue of royalties that you can earn from the usages of your songs.
It is important to note that if you have a specific use, to definitely contact your publisher and let them know about that specific use. Maybe they can provide you more information that you otherwise wouldn't know, and or speak with the society in the given territory where the work was used.
All right, wow. I feel like we've answered a lot of great questions. Thank you so much for this crowd participation. We truly appreciate you tuning in, staying engaged, and asking us all of these great questions. And I hope that you guys got a lot out of this webinar. We are so happy to host Elizabeth and myself. On behalf of Songtrust, I would like to thank you all for tuning in.